Today, I want us to learn something about the sheep and the shepherd. The sheep and the shepherd, the relationship between the two. And I know in the Bible, there are so many analogies that are used, especially in the area of animals. And every animal that is used in the Bible has a meaning. You can see the Bible talking about a dove, talking about lion. But allow us just to learn something about the sheep and also the shepherd, because this is there is a relationship between the two, and in almost quite a number of areas the Bible uses the two of them, because the word sheep in the Bible symbolizes believers who are dependent or guided by God. The word sheep in the Bible, it symbolizes believers who are dependent and guided by God. These are some of the things that I believe that you know, but there is something that I want us to learn, and it is quite important because I have been studying quite a number of areas about the sheep, and allow me to give you 5 characteristics of a sheep. 5 characteristics of a sheep. Sometimes there are those people who may ask, why not a goat? Certainly, a goat has a different meaning in the Bible. But as I've mentioned, the word sheep in the Bible symbolizes believers who are dependent on God. So there are 5 characteristics. Allow me just to take you through them, and then later we are going to look at 5 characteristics of a good shepherd. 5 characteristics of a sheep, and then 5 characteristics of a shepherd. Let me begin by the first one. Allow me, as we talk about sheep, maybe allow me to use it in terms of plural, but not singular. I know the word sheep, even in plural, it is still sheep. And therefore, when you hear me talk about sheep, it's not just a singular, but I'm talking about plural, because it has that element of sheep living together as a flock. Living together as a flock. And therefore, number 1, sheep are defenseless. Sheep are defenseless. That is very important for us to know that when the Bible is referring to God's people as sheep, when you look at the sheep, by the way, I want to believe that the sheep are all over the world. When you go to Europe, we have sheep. When you go to Africa, and you go to Australia, and you go to America, maybe the only thing is the difference of those sheep that are survive in Asia may be different from those that survive in Africa. However, they have similar characteristics. And this applies to God's people. We have similar characteristics that are referenced by the sheep. Number 1, as I've mentioned, sheep are defenseless. Yes, it is very important for you to know that sheep have no ability to defend themselves. They, especially in times of an attack from an enemy, they have no ability. They need someone. If they are not defended, then they become prey. They become it. And therefore, that is why, that is one of the characteristics that makes them to be dependent on a shepherd. They cannot survive without a shepherd. And therefore, the number 2, something else which is very good and very important for us to note about a sheep is that sheep are directionless. They are not only defenseless, but they are also directionless. If sheep are taken out there to a pasture, and somehow one of them gets lost, that sheep cannot find its way home. It's not able to take itself back home. That means it requires someone to go look for it. And you see, even in the Bible, there's a very good example where Jesus talked sheep. This shepherd who left the 99 and went back into the bush to go and look for the lost one. So that tells you that sheep are direct. They have no direction. And that now depicts the people that we lead, because uh, if people come together and they have no leader, they do not have anyone to give them direction, then they shall remain. Let me give an example of a church service, maybe on a Sunday. Let us assume that church members have got into the service, and pastor is nowhere to be seen. Leaders of the church are nowhere to be seen. Those church members shall remain seated, waiting for direction. Someone has to rise up and just give a certain direction of what they are going to do in the absence of the pastor, in the absence of a certain leader, or in the absence of someone they were expecting. Actually, church members, when they prepare themselves maybe for Sunday service, or they prepare themselves for a certain fellowship and they go there without a leader, they will do nothing. So that tells you that sheep are directionless. They need direction. They need to be guided. They need to be told what to do. And that is why every time when we have a gathering of people come together, they depend on the leader to show them direction, to tell them this is what you're going to do first. And then after that is done, then we are going to go to the next stage by and by until the program is over. Apparently, even when the church members get to the house of God, they have no clue of the kind of
I think Reverend Matthew is having a problem with the network. Okay, you're back.
I'm back.
Okay.
Sorry, I don't know whether it's from my end, but let's continue. Number 3. Okay, number 3. Let me rush into this thing so that we may finish on time. Number 3, the third characteristic that we find is that sheep were not created to carry heavy burden. Sheep were not created to carry heavy burden. Sheep are not like donkeys. Sheep are not like horses. Sheep are not like cows. There are those cows that sometimes are used to do plowing, to do farming. But you cannot use sheep to carry heavy stuff. And no wonder Jesus says that come and I will give you rest. Certainly, that now tells you that as leaders, if you burden the sheep, if you burden members with heavy stuff, then they are going to cry loudly against you. They are going to riot. And therefore, you need to understand that as we lead God's people, it is important that you give them a burden that they are able to bear. You'd rather give them something that is light, and then along the way, they will be able to, to carry that burden. I remember when we were young, when we were those old, young boys, and we were, when we were taking care of those sheep, sometimes we take them out there. Sometimes on its back, you are this is a young boy climbing on his back, but then that animal goes crazy just because of that soft burden that has been put on its back. And therefore, this is a quality or a characteristic that our, the people, and therefore, as leaders, we've got to be careful that as we then allied burden. Number 4, something else which is equally important is that sheep drive well while living in a group. Sheep drive well while living in a group. That means if you pick a certain sheep at the flock, then that isolation will affect its health because that animal will become lonely and even its health will begin to be affected. But when you put that animal among other sheep, then even its health now becomes better and it is able to thrive. In fact, they actually say that they become reproductive. Sheep become reproductive when they are together. They cannot reproduce. They cannot give birth more when in isolation. That tells you that that's the way we are. Human beings are social beings. We were created to live in a family. We were created to live in a social setup. Anytime you isolate a human being from others, loneliness will affect not only the health, but also the psychological. And that, on the other hand, it tells you that people love to be where other people are, and especially where majority are. There is a tendency of people trying to go to places where there are many people, but where there are a few people, there is a tendency of people not identifying themselves with such a group. So that tells you that it is very important for us to ensure that anybody who we are leading, whether in the church or in the corporate world, or possibly in a certain department in a church, if one person has been missing for a while, it is very important for you as a leader to make sure that you look for that person because they thrive well in the midst of other people. That was very key. Then the last one, the last characteristic of sheep is that sheep cannot take care of itself. Sheep cannot take care of itself. That is very crucial. Sheep has no ability to go out there to look for water on its own. It cannot go to look for food on its own. Maybe it can only look for food possibly just for one day, but it cannot survive for long. Someone has to do it. You know, even sheep, they provide wool. That means farmers do shaving. There is a particular season when sheep are shaved. You know, another time they're taken care of on their hooves. You see, all that particular care in the area of feeding, giving it water, shaving, and behooving and the rest of the stuff, sheep cannot do it by itself. It requires someone to take care of it. And that is why in the book of John chapter 10, the Bible records Jesus talking about himself, that I am the good shepherd. I am the good shepherd. And also David in the book of Psalm 23, a very common psalm that David mentions that God is my shepherd. I shall not be in want. Those two chapters, Psalm 23 and also John chapter 10, if you read from verse 1 all the way to verse number 18, it talks, including us as leaders, we have one shepherd who is Jesus Christ. In as much as some of us, we are pastors, and the word pastor basically means a shepherd, but it is equally important for us to understand that you as a leader, you cannot carry the burdens of this sheep because you are also part of the flock. However, let me just mention those 5 characteristics. Number 1, sheep are defenseless. Number 2, sheep are directionless. Number 3, sheep were not created to carry heavy burdens. Number 4, sheep drive well while living in a group. And then finally, sheep cannot take care of themselves. Now, that tells you in a summary that sheep requires to be shepherded. Sheep requires to be taken care of. And that person who takes care of the sheep is the shepherd. And that is where leaders come in. That is where pastors come in. That is where those people who are leading departments come in, because they cannot lead themselves. You can imagine, like if I give an example of the children of Israel, when they were in Egypt, in bondage, they were crying and praying to God that God will bring a deliverer. God will deliver them from that particular bondage. But you know what? They could not deliver themselves. They needed someone to be used by God as a shepherd, not only to deliver them, but also to show them the way to the promised land. They could not lead themselves. They could not take themselves there. Even though Moses had not been to the promised land, but he was being guided by God as the direction they're going to take on the way there. Same case applies to the people that we lead. They cannot lead themselves. They cannot shepherd themselves. They need to be shepherded. Let me now quickly give you the 5 descriptions of a good shepherd. And this is where now, as leaders, we come in. And as I've mentioned, we have our good shepherd with Jesus Christ. That's what he mentions in John chapter number 10, 5 descriptions or characteristics of a good shepherd. Number 1, a good shepherd has a caring heart. Take note of that word care. Take note of that word care. When Jesus was talking to John before he ascended into heaven, if you read John chapter number 21, they were taking breakfast one morning, and then the Bible records that Jesus asked Peter, Peter, do you love me? And then Peter says yes. Then Jesus asks Peter, then he tells him, take care of my lamb, take care. That's the first instruction that he was given. And then another question, he is asked, do you love me? Then Peter responds, yes. Then Jesus tells him, feed my sheep. Feed my sheep. Not there. So the first characteristic that we see of a good shepherd is that he needs to have a caring heart. In fact, a shepherd is a symbol of love, because anybody or a shepherd who cares is a shepherd who loves. You cannot care if you don't love. You cannot be a blessing to the sheep if you do not love them. And therefore, first thing is that a shepherd is a symbol of love. If you read First Peter chapter number 5, First Peter chapter 5, verse 2 and 3, the Bible records that those people who are shepherds must do that willingly, with a willing heart. Not only a caring heart, but also a willing heart. And therefore, if you are a leader, then that means you are a shepherd. You may be shepherding a few people, you may be shepherding a big group of people, but that is one of the characteristics that you need to have. Number 2, something else which is also equally important is that a shepherd knows his sheep and they know him. This is the book of John chapter 10. If you read verse number 14, John chapter 10 verse 14, Jesus says, I know my sheep and they know me. They know my voice. So that tells you that as a good shepherd is that person who knows each and every sheep by their names, by their character. There is someone who said that people love to be where they are called by their names, not by the description, maybe possibly by the way they wear, or by their height, or by what they do. People love to be at a place where they are called by their names. In fact, that goes even without saying. Even those people who are drunkards, when they go out there in pubs, they want to go to a pub where they are called by their names. They don't want to go to a place where they are not known. Same case applies to the people that we lead. If we are good leaders, then that means that we need to know the people that we are leading by their names, by their characters, by what they do. At least you need to know a few things about those people that you lead so that you will be able to know how to show good guidance or how to shepherd them. So that's another characteristic that as leaders you need to ensure that the people that you are leading, the people that you are shepherding, you have established a good relationship with them. Now, as I've mentioned, the first one, a shepherd has a caring heart. That is a symbol of love. The other thing is that a shepherd knows the sheep and they also know, they all know him. That means is a shepherd is a symbol of identity. Is a symbol of identity. People identify themselves. People identify themselves. In fact, let me now get down there and I say this. Do you know, even in a society where the community around, they know that church not just by the name, but they know that church by the person who is leading that church, who is the pastor. I think it's something that you need to think about because, like now, if you come to Ongige where I pastor, the church, yes, is called Grace Calvary Temple, but when you listen to the community around, they do not just talk about that church, but they identify themselves with the pastor who is leading that church. Same case applies if you are leading men department, if you are leading ladies, if you are leading in a certain company, if you are leading in another organization outside the church, people tend to identify themselves with you as a leader because of identity. Because of identity. Number three, something else which is also important, another characteristic of a good shepherd is that a shepherd gives his life for the sheep. A shepherd gives his life for the sheep. This is the book of John chapter 10, verse 11. If you read John chapter 10, verse 11, Jesus says that he is not like a hireling. He's not like a casual laborer. He's not like that person who is just given a work of, the work of taking care of the sheep just maybe for a day or two, but he is a person who is there and he gives himself. That means total sacrifice, total surrender. I remember those days when we were growing up, some of those mothers who gave birth to us, we were quite a number of us. And you know what was happening? Maybe one evening when the mother is serving supper, and then she realizes that supper is not enough. She first of all takes care of the children. She would rather go hungry. She would rather sleep hungry, but to make sure that the children are taken care of. That is exactly what it means for a shepherd, for that person who is a good shepherd. Taking care, making sure that you give yourself completely. That means that a shepherd is a symbol of sacrifice. Sacrifice. A symbol of sacrifice. The first one was symbol of love. Number two, the second was a symbol of identity. And then number three here is a symbol of sacrifice, total surrender. You just ensure that the sheep are well provided for, are taken care of, and then you now come as a second priority. That is very, very important. Then number four, another characteristic of a good shepherd is that a shepherd feeds the sheep with the right food. A shepherd feeds the sheep with the right food. If you look at Jeremiah chapter number 3, verse number 15, Jeremiah chapter 3, verse 15, the Bible records that I shall give you knowledge and understanding. What does that mean? A shepherd is that person who does not only just feed animals with junk food, but he makes sure that he feeds the sheep with food that is nutritious, a food that is going to benefit the sheep health-wise. That means when it comes now to you as a leader, you ensure that your flock is being fed with the right and true doctrine. with the right and true doctrine. There are so many things that are happening, especially nowadays. There are false teachers. There are so many wolves out there. But it is equally important for you to know that you need to make sure that you feed your flock, you feed your sheep with the right doctrine, the true word of God, undiluted as it is, the true gospel. Because even Jesus says that they shall know the truth, and that truth will set them free. That truth needs to be conveyed to them undiluted as it is, and that by itself, it is going to make the flock look healthy, and they are going to resemble Christ. They are going to be Christ-like when they have the true doctrine. Then the last one is that a shepherd protects his sheep from danger. That's another characteristic. Maybe possibly I should have mentioned in number 4, where we're talking about feeding the sheep with the right the right food. A shepherd is a symbol of provision. A shepherd is a symbol of provision. A shepherd is a symbol of provision. In fact, possibly if a shepherd misses, if a pastor misses the church maybe for 1, 2, 3, 4 Sundays, even a month and 2 months are gone, then there is that element of members longing for him or her, because they are wondering, wow, if this person possibly was here, we could have been fed with this, because they know you, they identify themselves with you as their shepherd. And so number 4 is a symbol of provision. Let's go to number 5. A shepherd protects the sheep from danger. It also is a symbol of protection. It is a symbol of protection. If you read Acts chapter number 20, Acts 20 verse 28 all the way to 31, Paul mentions to the church in Ephesus that I know after I leave, then savage wolves will come to attack the sheep. That is important. Then a shepherd has that responsibility of protecting the sheep from any danger. And that danger is from out there, the wolves. Those wolves are the false teachers. Those wolves are, those people who desires to come and separate the church, steal some, steal members from the house of God, or from a fellowship, or from whichever source, so that they can go and bring them down out there. They want to feed them with wrong doctrine. So we have that responsibility of taking care, protecting the sheep from that particular danger. So those are 5, descriptions, 5 characteristics of a good shepherd. Let me repeat them again pretty fast. Number 1, a shepherd has a caring heart. That is a symbol of love. Number 2, a shepherd knows his sheep, and and even the sheep know him. They know the voice of that, of that shepherd. That means symbol of identity. People identify themselves to the leader with a shepherd. Number 3, a shepherd gives his life for the sheep. That is a symbol of sacrifice. Number 4, a shepherd feeds the sheep with the right food. That is a symbol of provision, provide. And then number 5, a shepherd protects his sheep from danger. That is a symbol of protection. As I mentioned, maybe as I conclude, let me just conclude by saying this. If you look at those 5 characteristics of a shepherd, it actually, we can summarize it by possibly saying that a good shepherd has 3 responsibilities. A good shepherd has 3 responsibilities. Number 1 is to provide. To provide not only food, but water. To provide, to provide a good place for habitation and those things. Then we also have number 2, something else which is also important. Another responsibility is to protect the flock from danger, either from within or from out there. And then number 3, another responsibility is to guide, to offer
direction, to give direction. You remember we mentioned that sheep are directionless. They need someone who can direct them. That is why now the area of a good vision comes in. You have a vision, you have a dream, there is a place you want to take these people. Moses, when he was delivering, when he was being used of God to deliver the children of Israel from Egypt, he knew that their destiny is the promised land. He had to show direction as to how to get there. Even when Joshua took over, he had to ensure that these people are well directed, that when it comes to inheriting, to possessing their portion of land, he had to guide them, to show them that this particular tribe of Judah, they are going to inherit this area. The tribe of Manasseh, they are going to inherit this area. And by each and every family, and by each and every member of the family, they had to be guided. Same case applies to us as leaders. Those are three responsibilities, because as leaders, we are given people who are defenseless, people who are directionless, people who do not love to carry burdens, people who love to live in a family. And therefore, we've got to ensure that those characteristics that are described in Psalm 23, that I shall not be in want. And then he goes by and by, he mentions quite a number of things. And then it is equally important, people of God, for you to know that if you are going to be a good shepherd, not for the sake of the growth of the people that we are leading, then another important thing is that you need to be there for them, to be your presence. You know, the psalmist in Psalm 23, he says, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. So that is important, that you need to carry that characteristic of, like the way Jesus says that I am the good shepherd. Then we are serving him. We are doing that for his sake. And as we do that, it is important that our presence is equally important, and also we be sensitive, make sure that we connect with Christ, who is our good shepherd, and through that we shall be able to guide his people towards the direction that he wants to go. Otherwise, may God bless you, and in whichever area that you are shepherding, I believe and I pray that we need to believe God that we connect with him, so that he shall give us the ability, he shall give us the strength, he shall give us the wisdom, so that we do not mislead these people, and we also do not give them the wrong stuff, but we are there to make sure that we give them everything that is needed. Otherwise, thank you. God bless you.